My dear brothers and sisters, people want to be successful in life, and success is God's blessing. There are many people who succeed. They are successful in business, they are successful in sports, they are successful in skills, different skills. And my dear friends, successful people are often interviewed. No? They are brought and interviewed, and they are asked, who was your motivation? How did you reach there? How can you inspire others? So they are interviewed. There was one lady who was very successful, and she was asked one question, what is the secret of your success? And that lady, she smiled and said, the secret of my success is very simple. I stopped fighting with small fighters. I stopped fighting with small fighters. I stopped fighting with my in-laws. I stopped fighting with those who were gossiping about me. I stopped fighting for attention. I stopped fighting for unnecessary small things. I stopped fighting with people who enjoyed fights. I gave up small fights with small fighters, and I took on bigger fights. I started fighting for my dreams. I started fighting for my ideas. I started fighting for my vision, for my destiny. And that's how I became successful. I gave up the small fights and I took up bigger fights that were worth fighting for. My dear brothers and sisters, in our lives too, I think that is what Jesus is calling us to do. To give up the small fights and to take up bigger fights. In today's gospel, we see how Jesus is appointing the apostles to follow him very closely. And many of them were fishermen. Jesus is calling them to give up small fights and to take up big fights. What were they fighting for? Fishermen, what do they fight for sometimes? They were fighting over nets. They were fighting over fish. They were fighting over boats. But now Jesus is telling them, give up all those fights, small fights, and come, let us fight for souls. Let us fight for God's kingdom. Let us fight for something big, something worth fighting for. And he invites his apostles. My dear brothers and sisters, that is what each one of us is called to do, to fight for souls, to fight for God's kingdom like the apostles. But if you have to take up the big fight, you have to be a die-hard fan of Jesus. So the question each one of us needs to ask ourselves, am I a die-hard fan of Jesus like Saint Anthony of Padua? Am I a die-hard fan of Jesus? A few days back, there was a lot of hype in football in Goa, no? The Al Nassr team came to play against FC Goa, and many people were excited. Many thought Ronaldo would be coming. They were expecting him to come, but then later on they were disappointed. But all the same, this Al Nassr team was coming, and FC Goa was getting ready to play against them. So people were excited, and that day they played at the Fatorda Stadium. There were around 14,839 people who had gathered for that match. So they had all come to watch their teams play, and they were enjoying the match. But something happened during the second half. One of the supporters of Al Nassr, a 27-year-old person from Kerala, he was wearing an Al Nassr jersey. He broke all the barriers and ran onto the football field. Ran near one Portuguese player, João Felix, have you heard of that case? Ran near him and requested him for a selfie. He did not object, so he took a selfie on his mobile phone. But then the security came. The security came and they took his mobile, they deleted the photo, and they handed him over to police. The police filed an FIR against him, and he had to spend one night in prison. And I was listening to this fan of Al Nassr team who was speaking. He was giving a sort of interview, and he said, I'm very happy about what I have done. Because by hook or by crook, I wanted to go on the ground and take the photo with my favorite player. Actually, João Felix, I'm not his fan. I was waiting for Ronaldo, he says. And given an opportunity to take a photo with Ronaldo, I would be willing to do anything. Nobody can stop me. Nothing can stop me. I'm willing to go through all this again. There's no problem, he said. I just want that photo. And even they may have deleted the photo from my mobile. So what? That moment, that precious moment on the field with my favorite footballer, that will always remain in my heart. That is what he was saying. I didn't really approve of his behavior, but I could not keep myself from admiring his zeal, enthusiasm, and determination. A die-hard fan. My dear friends, each one of us is called to be a die-hard fan of Jesus. And if you are a die-hard fan of Jesus, you would be willing to do anything for Jesus, like the apostles. Today, we remember Saint Simon, Saint Jude, apostles of Jesus, the other apostles. They died as martyrs. They were willing to do anything for Jesus. Saint Anthony was willing to do anything for Jesus. He actually wanted to die as a martyr. We know that. So, my dear friends, are you so madly in love with Jesus today? As a die-hard fan for Jesus, I need to trust in him completely. Do I really trust in Jesus completely? I was watching a documentary on YouTube. There's a 10th standard girl from Ernakulam, Kerala. Her name is Agna. Have you heard about her? Agna from Kerala. And she has had an experience of Jesus in Holy Communion. Not only once, but she has experienced 5 Eucharistic miracles. 5 Eucharistic miracles. The first time the host on her tongue started bleeding, blood started splattering out of it. The second time that whole communion only became a piece of flesh. So like that it happened 5 times. The third time, all her teachers from the school, the other children, they were all present there. Right in front of them it happened. And she also had an experience of Mother Mary weeping tears of blood and also marks in on her hands. My dear friends, I was watching this documentary and this girl, she was expressing herself. She says, earlier I never really used to believe in these Eucharistic miracles. But after what has happened to me, I really do believe. Before every Eucharistic miracle, I got a dream, she says, that previous night. Something that made me very uncomfortable. And the next morning, a Eucharistic miracle would happen. And she says, earlier I used to ask many questions. How, why, what? Today I don't ask any questions because I have experienced firsthand Jesus in the Holy Eucharist. He has become flesh and blood on my tongue and I have experienced it. So she was saying the church will take some time to make their study on these miracles. But for me, I'm already convinced. This is what this 10th standard girl was speaking on YouTube. The documentary is there. My dear brothers and sisters, we need to really put our trust in the Lord. And for the sake of Jesus, we need to be willing to take up the big fight, to fight for souls, to fight for God's kingdom, like Saint Anthony of Padua, like Saint Jude and Saint Simon, like the apostles. Let us not be Christians of convenience, but let us be Christians of conviction, who are convinced of the love of God and willing to do anything for Jesus. So that we may be blessed with this grace, let us pray during this Holy Eucharist.